Hello everybody, and as always, welcome to the YouTube video. If you're a game master potentially looking at Pathfinder 2nd Edition as your next TTRPG, or maybe you're a player just curious why people like Pathfinder 2nd Edition in general, then this video is for you and you are definitely in for a treat. In this YouTube video, I will be going over my top 5 things that I love about Pathfinder 2nd Edition coming from the game master's perspective. And if this video gets 10 likes, I will be sure to share my top 10 Foundry VTT mods that I use when playing Pathfinder 2nd Edition online. But without further ado, let's get right into the thick of things. So, starting off everything with number 5, a streamlined rule set. So in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, perhaps the most attractive thing for me, I guess that's maybe not the right word to use, but even still, the most attractive thing for me about Pathfinder 2nd Edition is that it is well made and has a beautifully crafted rule set. You don't have to worry about things being unbalanced because you know that everything has been playtested excessively and makes sense and is fair. That combined with the 3-action economy is absolutely game-changing for the flow with combat. Everything feels seamless and it makes sense, and you don't have to worry about getting bogged down on having to look up rules or looking up what is a bonus action and what's an action. You just know that on your turn during combat or in order to do anything, it's pretty much either an action or multiple actions. Because in Pathfinder, if you don't know, it uses a 3-action economy, which essentially means that you only have 3 actions on your turn to do whatever you want, whether it be move, attack, cast a spell, or activate a feature, or do other things like that. And if you're a game master that's worried about Pathfinder 2nd Edition being a completely unbalanced system that requires tons of out-of-session time to playtest encounters or go over player features and abilities and maybe tweak certain things to make sure that one player isn't excessively stronger than the rest or things like that, then Pathfinder 2nd Edition is not that system, so you don't have to worry about that stuff. In my humble opinion, the encounter system with Pathfinder is robust, makes sense, is fair, and also challenging. And this leads me to my next point, which is number 4, which is a balanced and versatile encounter design. Pathfinder 2nd Edition offers you as a game master a horde of options to be able to use when creating your encounters. And on top of that, the amount of tools that they give you at your disposal in your toolbox for creating both challenging, memorable, fair, and above all, fun encounters for your players is insane, and the best part about it is that they're all balanced and make sense, so no playtesting. Whether it be creating a climactic boss fight or perhaps a trap-filled dungeon, Pathfinder 2nd Edition gives you as the game master all of the tools that you need in order to build a fun and engaging encounter using XP budgeting, which basically how it works is that you have an XP budget that is determined by your party's level and your party's size, which you use to determine the difficulty of an encounter, using some of these tables that I'm showing right now, or by using an online encounter calculator. And in my humble opinion, this system works extremely well, so you never have to playtest an encounter to obviously determine if an encounter truly is what it is saying when you go to calculate it. You just know for a fact that if you want to create a boss encounter, it will be a boss encounter, or a severe encounter, or if you want to create a trivial encounter, it will be. And that is something that I fantastically love about this system. And as a game master, of course, it means that my job becomes a lot easier. But that's not all. Pathfinder 2nd Edition also comes with a bunch of really cool traps and terrain changes, I should say. An example of which is the Nightmare Terrain Trap, which can be used to perhaps surround an ancient crypt that your players are trying to get to, or perhaps is the result of a powerful ritual from an evil wizard who has taken an entire town hostage. But anyways, as you can see, the game provides you with everything you need to know about the trap, such as its traits, ways to disable it, and of course, its effects on the player characters if your heroes fail to resist its mental onslaught. But of course, you can't always throw terrain traps or regular traps at your players. Sometimes you do need a good old monster, which leads me to my third point, which is Pathfinder 2nd Edition has some of the coolest monsters out there. There are literally hundreds of crazy cool and unique monsters that Pathfinder comes with, an example being the Tooth Fairy Swarm or the Sky Dragon. And these monsters come with their own set of unique abilities that can make combat encounters feel fresh, unique, and awesome depending upon the, level of legendariness that the monster may have. For example, a crystal dragon has a feature called crystallized flesh, which allows it to potentially embed a creature with these kind of diamond crystalline structures that begin to slowly engulf and grow around the creature, kind of acting like a petrification spell from what I understand. However, it gives the players a kind of dynamic time frame to work around with trying to kill the creature before this effect completely engulfs them. And this is a pretty high-level example. I wouldn't recommend you throw a crystal dragon at your players unless of course they meet or exceed the level for that monster, but keep in mind, these cool features that I had mentioned previously extend to all monsters, not just legendary ones. So you can pretty much guarantee that encounters will have something that will surprise your players and have them asking the question, wait, they can do that? Which, I don't know about you guys, but as a GM, I love it when my players say that. And speaking of being surprised by new features or abilities, this leads me to number 2 on my list, which is character creation options. And you may be thinking at this point,
You're the game master, you don't create characters, so how can you enjoy the character creation options?
and while yes, that is technically true, unless of course I'm creating an NPC or something, the focus of the game is obviously on the players, so me as a GM, I get excited when I see that they take new cool features or abilities because it means that can lead to new exciting situations both in combat and role-playing aspects for their players. And this may be different for you depending upon your GMing style, but for me, I love being excited and surprised by what features and abilities my characters, or players I should say, choose from when creating their characters. Because, I don't know if you know this, but in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, the character creation process is extensive to say the least. I mean, there are hundreds, if not potentially thousands of different variations for a character that you can make. And because of this, I think it's a little bit unrealistic to expect a GM to know all of those features and abilities and account for those. So I love when my players choose a new feature that I wasn't expecting or perhaps didn't know about, because it means a new feature for me, and of course, if it's a strong feature, then it just means that I get to throw potentially stronger and more deadly monsters at the players. And with new online tools for character creation like Path Builder or Pathfinder Nexus, honestly, the character creation process gets a lot simpler when you're not having to look at all the features just on a page, and you can just kind of look at them and select them in an online or virtual setting, I should say. And at this point, with all the things I've kind of covered so far, maybe you're thinking as a game master like, holy crap, okay, well that's all cool and dandy and stuff, but there is a lot to cover with Pathfinder, so how the heck do you keep track of all these rules and memorize these things? And I don't know if you know this, but the book, oh gosh. The core rulebook is pretty big. I mean, this thing is a monster in of itself. And this is just the core rulebook. There are, of course, other books that Paizo has released that add more features and abilities to it, and if you go to Archives of Nethys, you can see how extensive all of the rules and monsters and different things like that are. I don't know if you know this, but Archives of Nethys is where all of the rules for Pathfinder 2nd Edition are, and Starfinder in 1st Edition for free. So go check that out, and I'll be sure to leave a link below. But anyways, without further ado, let's look at my number 1 thing that I love about Pathfinder 2nd Edition, which is that the system plays extremely well on a virtual tabletop. So Pathfinder 2nd Edition is a great system, don't get me wrong. However, just like with any TTRPG, there can be a lot of rules to keep track of, and if you're a GM, sometimes it can be difficult to truly memorize or at least know where to reference all of the information for spells, traits, or conditions, and it can be a bit overwhelming sometimes, especially for new game masters. But when playing a system like Pathfinder 2nd Edition on a VTT, for example Foundry VTT, it makes the whole process easy, and above all, makes the gameplay smooth and quick, which, as I'm sure you guys as a player or a GM can definitely appreciate. So for example, if you run Pathfinder 2nd Edition on Foundry VTT, all of the rules are baked into the system with hyperlinks and hover over descriptions and things like that make your job as a game master and even as a player much easier, because you don't have to worry about looking up all of the rules, whether it be in the game itself, and the game master has to implement all of those rules by uploading them to the server or whatever you're using to host your VTT, and all of that kind of nonsense that can lead to a lot of headache on the GM side of things. Did you forget what the Frighten condition does? Well, you don't have to worry about that, because the effects of that condition are automatically applied to the token, and if you want to read the rules regarding a particular condition, you can just hover over the effect and get a description of it. And non-familiar with what a trait does? Well, guess what? You can just hover over that and it will give a description of it. And if you're worried about applying conditions and things like that, well, Paizo has a team that works with Foundry VTT to implement new rules, systems, and conditions into the game for complete ease of use and automation. So, for example, with this particular spell, you can see that once I cast it, it will put all the useful information regarding that spell in chat, and it will also show you a hyperlink for the particular condition or feature that spell would apply to a character or token. And then I can click and drag that effect onto a token, which will automatically apply the conditions, features, boosts, or penalties to that token and the character sheet most importantly, which makes the gameplay very quick. So as you can see, This makes gameplay a lot quicker, smoother, and a lot simpler for both the player and the GM, which in my opinion is fantastic because as a GM you don't have to worry about looking up all these rules and keeping track of all the conditions on the tokens and having to come up with your own way to keep track of those and having to either keep notes about those conditions or features. The system just takes care of it all automatically for you. You don't have to worry about all that stuff, which as a GM, I'm sure you can definitely appreciate. So maybe you guys can relate to this, but in my experience, especially in recent years, the majority of my games have moved online, so playing on a good VTT is a necessity for me. And with the integration for Pathfinder 2nd Edition that Foundry VTT has, it makes gameplay a lot quicker and easier for me as a GM. And especially if you're a new GM looking to play Pathfinder 2nd Edition, I cannot heavily recommend Foundry VTT enough to you because it makes your job as a GM a lot easier with calculating encounter difficulties, looking at conditions, traits, and features, and hover over descriptions, and how easy it is to look up rules and features for monsters or your characters. It just makes your job as a GM a lot simpler, so I cannot heavily recommend it enough, and I definitely think you should at least give it a try. But with that, those were my top 5 things that I absolutely love about Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Be sure to leave a like if you liked, and drop a comment down below with some of the things that you like about Pathfinder 2nd Edition. But anyways, everybody, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy. Bye-bye.